Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Ava. I'm here with Coco. As you might know, we do a lot of Neverwinter videos on YouTube regarding healers and tanks and just our opinions and our builds. We don't do our opinions very often.
We don't do our opinions very often, no. This is kind of, well, I kind of do.
You kind of do your opinions. I kind of stick to the book. This is what is good, but I do, in some ways, from a healer perspective, have some opinions, but I like people to play the game how they like. And Coco has
slightly stronger opinions.
Slightly. But yeah, we're here today. This video is going to go over the most recent stream that Cryptic Studios had with their new producer. If you didn't see it, his name is Brett. He was accompanied with Julia, and they talked about changes to the game.
Just to answer questions, really, right?
Right, yeah.
Mostly focused on, I think she said that they did take questions beforehand that she had ready, but it was a lot of just questions in chat, so it's just generally what the people watching wanted to know, so it didn't cover everything.
Right, yeah, they pulled some stuff from forums, and then they also pulled some stuff from chat. But it felt this time around, I mean, just to get this off the plate, it did feel much more organic and candid in a way. It felt like these questions that were being answered were real. There wasn't any faff, I guess is the word for it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we don't usually do these videos like just based on our opinions or anything about the game as a whole, but this did feel somewhat like a shift in the game, maybe.
Yeah, I think a lot of times a lot of information will come out about the game and just comes out of nowhere. This time around, you know, there's always a lot of change in the leadership over in Cryptic. It feels like there's always someone new running the game, running how things go. You know, you see the same people, but you also see a lot of new people. And the new people that you see over there or hear about are very, very important people to the process. So every time you see a new name come up with Cryptic or with Neverwinter, it's like, oh no, what's in store for us?
Which is why over the years you have a lot of jokes that players make about, you know, Thomas Foss this and Chris Whiteside that, and how it's, you know, you hear stuff about how their influence on the game and that sort of thing. So I think it's interesting.
And a lot of times, and a lot of times they're just picking up where the person left off, but without very little information, you know? I mean, with very little information. This, like, I don't really know where they had going with this. I don't know really what they were doing with that, but here's what we're going to do now. It always feels like there's a picking up point and no communication between the handoff, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times can happen.
Which I guess we'll get on to what happened. And obviously, I just want to, as a disclaimer, a preface at the beginning is just, this is obviously just our opinion on everything, and I'm not going to go around recommending people listen to our opinion on this, but people that like listening to us or value what we have to say might get something out of this, because this is just purely from our experience, like how the things sounded. Going into the game from our experience in the past and from our years playing the game and you know, all that. So I would honestly recommend, if you want to get your own opinions and you want to get your own sort of idea on what's going on, is to just go and watch the saved stream on Twitch yourself. I'm not going to say watch us or watch somebody else's summary or anything. You'll get the best idea from just watching the stream.
Absolutely, yeah. And we'll put the link to that stream in the description below, so you'll be able to go and watch it and see what was talked about right there live on the stream. And see even the questions that were asked and see what other people were interested in. And this today is strictly just, you know, our opinions as veteran players to the game.
It's also not everything. I just took some notes on things that's like jumped out as like important.
I mean, to be fair, sometimes people do ask some questions probably don't warrant coming back to.
There's some dumbass questions that get asked that there's just no like need to spend the time answering some of these questions.
Definitely
so I guess that's that's my strongest opinion about the every time they do these streams is dumbass questions that take up valuable time that could be used answering.
Hey, it's important to someone out there, and
I guess, yeah.
it's surprisingly a lot of people. So we'll get into it. We're kind of go in like an order of how when we were watching it, what we heard, take notes on it. Koko's much better note taker. I listened to it, but he definitely was better about taking the notes. So we can
I guess I'll go off of what I noted down, and then you can say like what you want to say about it, because some of this might be really stupidly written down and not make much sense. But hey, do you want to head right into it?
Yeah, let's go.
Head right into it after we just spent 10 minutes or whatever rambling. But anyway. So the first thing I put is Brett Norton, his name was?
Yes, Brett Norton.
Is obviously, that's how it begins, is he's the new executive producer.
He is.
For the game. The number one thing to take away from this is that he has played the game.
And plays.
Plays the video game. And they pointed out they wanted somebody that had experience with the game, which is, hallelujah, something that has been a painfully obvious issue with the developers for a long time, is that even if they say they play the game, a lot of the time it's a very early game, very small amount. People have often said, oh, the Guardian Fighter was so strong back in the day because all the developers play the Guardian Fighter, blah, blah, blah. That's a pretty important thing.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, and also every time it got around to a question, he put his opinion in based off of his experience of playing the game. And you don't see that a lot. It's usually very, behind the scenes talk. But he definitely put himself in the shoes of a player because he plays the game. That was refreshing.
He was saying many things that you go, oh yeah, that's exactly the issue in the game.
Despite the fact he plays a barbarian, I can't relate to that, but...
I can. He plays a barbarian tank.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah, I mean, he did say that he plays paladin. He plays healer. He did mention that as well, so maybe we'll get to it, but maybe that does allow maybe a rework or something faster than...
Possibly.
than others' classes.
That did get mentioned.
It did. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Please continue.
But yeah, I guess so. That's what I put down. I put good sign if he actually means he plays all the content, which by the sounds of it, most of it at least.
Yeah.
To end game and is farming end game items that he was struggling to get, which is another thing that we'll come to. But I put Barbarian Tank. Good sign for Barb Tank? Question mark.
I mean, honestly, it could be. It could mean that I don't know. Barb tanks could sit there and tell you, and you may know, even though I don't see a lot of them. I don't heal a lot of Barb tanks, but you may know that they usually are kind of the third tank out of the three. So it's a lot of signs for, it could be some good signs for Barbs,
Yep.
Definitely.
I mean, I don't know how much that really is going to influence things. It doesn't seem that way, but I did put that down. I thought it was funny when I noted it to myself. Got to make someone laugh, right?
Yeah, wasn't Chris Whiteside like a paladin main, and they just completely destroyed the paladin? Is that why you left?
Possibly. The paladin only got butchered in the time that he was around.
Yeah,
so I'm not sure what the deal is there.
I think we're onto something.
I think it's that end game thing again. It's that conversation of whether the developers actually play an end game when the class balances etc. actually matter, because they don't earlier on.
This is true.
But okay, next part anyway. That was the first big thing to put on. Next part that I put down, which is actually important to us, the Sharandar Masterwork update ain't coming.
Oh, yeah. I mean, okay. I try and stay very optimistic. And a part of me goes, okay, well, if the Mastercraft update and all of that isn't coming, then we are not going to be getting new weapons anytime soon.
No, that's the main thing. I think it was actually put as the Sharandar Mastercraft Weapons. Obviously, don't quote me on this, but I did write it down, because that's an important thing for us. We've been waiting for these since last year. We saw images of the new weapons, which, to be fair, even though we both use them and we recommend using Mastercraft Weapons, the transmutes were the thing that jumped out.
You liked the transmutes?
As these transmuter orcs, the wooden.
Oh, it was. That feels like so long ago, and they're still not out.
Yeah, so that was a while ago that we got hold of those images.
It was a very long while ago.
And that was the thing, is that we were sitting there like, oh, Sharandar, right? We've moved on from Sharandar.
Yeah.
We're not in Sharandar anymore.
Yeah.
Why are we walking around with a bag full of professions items from Vault of Stars that are clearly going to be used in crafting the weapons? Why do we have those in our bags?
They've just been dropping all willy-nilly, and you're just like holding on to them. But for what? Now we know.
And that's not just recent. That's not just recent. Those have been dropping. It was last March.
Now we know that there's no point, really. I mean, you can hold on to them, but not for anything anytime soon. Yeah,
it's like it's just a very weird series of events for the Mastercraft weapons. I don't really understand what. Clearly, someone's not thinking or not communicating with the line of that, because why do we get a preview of them? Okay, cool. That means they're coming, which they did actually address the preview gear thing later on, a little bit later on. Then it's dropping the materials. It's actually dropping the materials for us, but no word of when we're actually going to get it. Like, when's that ever happened before? In the past, we would get it all at the same time. The new weapons would come out, the new materials would come out, you know. Jobs are good in. Go and get your weapons. Go buy them.
This is kind of one of the first times where something's just randomly dropping for people, and there's literally no use for it.
Yeah, which also, this actually has a knock-on effect as well, because farming Mastercraft weapons from content has historically been a way for endgame players to make money, to make diamonds in the game, right? Think about selling Farta Tresidium and stuff like that. Obviously, slightly less so with Tomb of the Nine Gods. When that stuff dropped, the Chult weapons.
When it came out, T9 was pretty easy at that point.
Yeah, and those materials weren't used a lot.
Right.
But the materials that you went and farmed in the zone were worth a lot.
Yeah.
So now you've already devalued those items because there's already so many of them in the game before the weapons even come out to craft them.
Right.
Then how can they be used for people to make money with? Which is a healthy part of the game. It's a healthy part of the economy. It gets people in there farming them. Whatever. I mean, I know that the whole thing about AD is kind of a side thing these days because they clearly don't want people making a lot of AD. But yeah, I did just think of that as well.
I think in reality, it's a bit silly to have it just dropping in there. But now we know when you see it drop, there's no date or any kind of guarantee that we are going to get new Mastercraft weapons. Yeah. And as far as us support mains, what does that mean for our characters? Not much. Because
keep using the same weapons, honestly.
And if we're looking at the new weapons and the new mod rework, the old weapons still have all the artifact modification choices. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still kind of like, it doesn't really matter that much. But, I mean, hey, at least now we know that we don't have to recommend it in our future builds. Hold out for the new Mastercraft weapons.
Which was something we had said multiple times is, well, you can wait for the new ones.
Yeah, don't go ahead and get the old ones.
Because there's no ETA on that, basically.
Yeah.
So. Next thing I put, roadmap. Someone asked about the roadmap, which is coming up for the next year. Going to be together soon.
Yes.
He said. The second half of 2023 is what they're working on now. But the next year, from now and the first half of 2023, is pretty solid. From the sounds of it. So, I mean, that's not really much news. That's just...
You would hope that that's what's going on.
At least when we get a roadmap, which he said he's not going to rush, but it's going to be soon that we're going to get it. And it's pretty funny, actually, because he used terms to refer to length of time for when something's going to be out without giving a solid number. Which, obviously, smart to do that.
Yeah.
You don't want to give exact
strategic.
Things. But I was picking up on the pattern. So I could kind of gauge how long he meant by the words he was using, which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, so yeah, next year seems pretty solid. That's just the release schedule. And we'll get some information on that soon about what's actually in it.
Right. I mean, and what we have right now, we just have the new trial and we have Scale Blight, right? So we have some time. But
we are expecting something soon.
Exactly. Soon. Yeah, we have some time still, but there's new stuff to come, and Sounds like, and I'm sure you put this in your notes, but it sounds like also events that are coming back around.
Yes, that is also coming up. So someone asked about bugs, and if there's a big backlog on bugs and stuff. And I put here, pushing to get better internal documentation of known bugs and looking to improve quality of life for both developers and players, which is something he brought up a few times throughout the stream. It seems like he wants to work on the core development of the game. Like he wants to work on developing better tools so that they can fix things easier.
Right.
So that they can work on stuff that they need to work on before they work on stuff that they want to work on. Does that make sense? I'm very much paraphrasing that.
Yeah.
From the general stream, but...
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly... It does sound like he's wanting to get his developers better tools to better fix the issues in the game. So it probably means... I mean, everyone's put in a support ticket at this point, right?
Yeah.
Something silly's happened and you think it's going to be an easy fix, but something weird about their coding, they can't do it, you know?
Or they can't replicate it.
They can't replicate it, right? So maybe those kind of tools being implemented for them to not only fix known issues, but little issues that come up, like I accidentally bound this to my bard, like I did with, you know, some ring over here. Yeah. Why does that happen and how come it can't be undone? Those little things, they're not bugs. Well, they are bugs. They're issues because of that. But at the end of the day, it's like those little things could also be implemented with that whole getting better tools to fix things. And a better way of actually documenting it is the most important thing. Because I've put on the forums a dozen things that...
Oh, many things over the years that have been ignored.
There are so many things. I mean, we've even talked about this. I've even considered putting out videos about the shield glitches and the potion bonus boons and all the little silly things that just are always not working.
Yeah, and he did say as well, for both developers and players, the quality of life changes. So he mentioned stuff like improvements to bag and companion power sorting. Because of a lot of bags, and this is something that's coming from his experience in game, is he's saying he has so many companions and he has to dig through them all to find it, and that's something that he sits there and goes, I want to fix that. So now he's in a position where he can
it's kind of funny,
fix it, probably. Like he can fix his own problems.
You have the power, man.
Yeah.
You have the power to fix these things.
So I guess that's where some of that stuff is coming from, but also the development side.
Right.
So it's both sides. Bard fixes.
Yes.
So that's coming.
Specifically minstrel. First, yeah. And man, I mean, I've even said I will not play the bard until they fix it, because I don't want them to give the playtime. It doesn't deserve it, you know. And people might disagree and say, oh, it's still playable. It's not playing as it's intended. So I am excited that they are fixing it. Should it be like, you know, a big rework of the bard being the only thing that we get, you know, that's questionable, but
easily.
Yeah.
I guess the thing was, some things are long-term fixes that are going to take a long time to fix, and other things are simple.
Yeah.
He said there is a divide there. The time frame I put down here under 6 months, which might have been alluded to, or however, I don't know whether that was exactly stated, but I did put down under 6 months, so it is something that's recent. And he said about how, I mean, here's my opinion on this. This isn't like good news that the bard is getting fixed. This is just news. It's just neutral information, right? The bard shouldn't have been broken to start off with.
Yeah.
And it should have been fixed faster than this. I mean, for crying out loud, they made a whole mod of which the only content was the release of the bard.
Yeah.
You would think that it would work. Which, actually, he also did address later. It's funny, a lot of this stuff he also mentioned in other sections, so it was pretty coherent. That's why I do suggest listening to the whole thing. It's probably more coherent than we might be, but that's something that kind of, I mean, it's something that I've been talking about for a while, is where are these fixes or these reworks to classes that they mentioned 2 years ago, right? Like the Paladin, that's been since... I think that has been like 2 years now since they said that's next on the list. Paladin and the Wizard and the Whisper Knife Rogue, but I do know that that's better now. So there probably has been some changes to that stuff. And it's about the time that they said they were going to make some changes and class balances to the Warlock, the DPS Fighter. Those have been addressed. And those were like temporary fixes, I believe. It was things where they were just changing the magnitudes, etc. Like it wasn't like huge changes, which actually did help. A lot of them are in a closer place now, but people still complain about the Wizard. And the Paladin is still just simply inferior. With almost a lot of the powers that it has on it on both. I'll put it in my opinion simply. I was a paladin main.
Yeah,
which I'm now not as much. Because it just got annoying.
Does this also come from the tank perspective?
I assume so. Yeah, I mean, in the past that was the point when it was mentioned a while ago, and that was something to get fixed. But I guess the point is the Bard pushed those fixes out of the way. The Bard coming into the game obviously took time away to make the Bard, and then fixing the Bard has also taken priority over the other classes.
Yeah.
Right? So now, and he mentioned the Paladin and the Wizard getting fixed later, which means I'm not wrong about this.
They may be on a back burner, but they're not off. They're not out of the picture.
They were on the list, and the Bard pushed them out of the way, which is kind of lame. And that's why the Bard fix news is, and it's like, I'm definitely putting a negative spin on this side of things, but I don't think it's negative. It's just neutral. It's just, okay, good. Should be fixed. I guess, is my thing.
I mean, if you think about it, the class had time on preview. It has had plenty of time live. The fact that it's only now getting addressed, especially like its bugs with healing and whatnot. I mean, the fact it's only now getting addressed, and people invested a lot of resources and AD into bards, and they are on it even today, like still asking, can we get a minstrel bard build? What's going on with this? It's like, I can't answer that for you because I do the one thing that the bard actually can do, single target heal, and I just leave everything else alone.
People enjoy the bard.
Yeah.
People actually like it, and the problem is it doesn't work as it should.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like, and this isn't a debate, this is objective. Some of the powers literally do not do what it says it does.
Exactly. Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, very easily. It's just, it's a bit painful. And I think even just the songs, typing in songs, especially if you're on like console, I'm sure there's like a macro or like a keybind or something on PC, but even things like that, I hope they address all of that and rework it in a manner that when somebody picks up the game, they can go, oh, I'll play a bard, and not sit there and go, I hate this. Because having to learn all of that,
clunky.
It's clunky. It's not the same combat as the rest of the classes. So I don't immediately ever recommend it. I would like to be in a scenario in which I can go play the bard. It's awesome, just like the rest of the healers. And actually be honest about it. Yeah. Not try and sugarcoat it or anything. So yeah, but it is a bit upsetting because I do think the Paladin, honestly, I want it to take precedent. There are so many people so loyal to that class, and just like you, and I love playing the Paladin. I think that is just so overdue. People say it all the time in the comments, and I'm excited to see them do something with it. I just hope they do something with it that is, it's a good change and it's different. It's not just buffing up the shields a little bit, it's not anything like that. It's something just a little bit more than... Yeah,
and this isn't, and honestly, I'm not looking to have a debate with people about whether the Paladin is okay or no, it's fine, I just play it bad or whatever. I've spoken about this a lot in the past.
Yeah.
It's objectively, there are powers that are just worse versions of powers on other classes.
Yes.
i.e. the Guardian Fighter, the Fighter, whatever. That's as simple as it is. Also, there are core things that are an issue with it, with healing, which you spoke about as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, honestly, the healing stuff is less so a problem, some of the issues on it.
Than the tank.
Yeah, which is it's kind of weird, because tanks is whatever in this game, and in a lot of games. Anything
to
can
a
tank.
Certain extent.
You can tank, right? You can either tank it or you can't. So really, there's not an argument about that, because obviously any of them can do it. That's not an issue. but when one of the tanks has a massive damage buff that the other one doesn't have, or whatever, and there's no replacement for it, it's like, okay, well, this one's better. Easily. Like, there's no debate about it other than that. You know, this one only takes one button to do the same thing as this one that has 2 buttons. This one has an encounter that does something, whereas this one only has a daily that does the same thing. It's like...
It can't compare it because it's just not on the same level.
And I know something that he brought up as well about the class balancing was having niche powers and stuff like that. He wants classes to be better in some scenarios, and that's not really, in my opinion, a good way to look at that, because it just means that people will just pick that class for whatever content.
Well, yeah, I think that there is a limit to that, because if you have a niche in a group setting, 5-man setting, cool, but the other healers need to have a niche that's comparable to that, and the same for a trial. You can't just be the off healer that throws up a shield, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, the paladin healer is an off healer in trials, and it's a bad healer in dungeons or whatever. It's a and I know that obviously people bring this up, and the DC is obviously, the cleric is obviously a very strong healer. That's the comparison. It's not the fact that the paladin's bad.
It's just comparing it to
something that's overly strong.
Exactly.
Or whatever,
yeah, and you have to put them on the same scales because they're all the healers. You know, you're not going to sit there and go, oh, the rogue, if only the paladin has as good as damage as the rogue. It's not about other classes. It's about all the healers being on the same playing field despite having different niches. Yeah, I mean,
we've said this before, and obviously this isn't how you want to look at the game and recommend it, but you say you want to play the best of that role, Guardian Fighter, Cleric, Rogue, or Ranger.
Yeah.
That's it. The game only has 4 classes if you look at it that way, which a lot of people do. A lot of people do look at it as they want to play the class in that role that is the best. And you can simply make up groups with just those 4 out of the 9, you know, and that would be the way to play the game.
Yeah.
So...
And it's not fair in that manner. But I mean, not to go too off track or anything.
Which this is well off.
Yeah. If you are a paladin main and you're listening to this, I think the thing to say right now is, yes, the paladin needs help, because the more you can get that buff, the better and better you're going to enjoy that class that you're super loyal to. So you can defend it. I would defend it in your brain and let the buffs and the reworks happen. So
don't argue that, oh no, it's fine because I can do it or whatever, because then it won't get the recognition it needs.
Yes, it needs to be addressed, because it needs to be able to be comparable to the other strong classes in their roles. So I agree.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll move on. And actually, this does kind of relate. They said that they can compare class performance and usage in content, which I heard that, and I asked you, I said, I heard that right, didn't I? Like, they have information, they have data on that, of class performance and usage in content.
Yes.
Which is important.
It is very important.
And that he also said powers, because they were asking about powers being buffed or whatever, and he said, this is where he said the whole thing about how he wants some of the powers to be core staple powers to the class, and other ones niche powers, which makes sense. And I think that's fine in the game in most cases. Right now, he did mention that that's an issue with the paladin. He thinks is that some of the powers are just bad and you would never use them. That was something that sticks out to him as a reason to look at the paladin, so that's fair. A good way to look at it. But he said something about they can track things that are equipped to loadouts.
Right.
And I think referring to like powers, so they can track powers that are never used because they're never equipped to anyone's loadouts, for example.
Yeah, well, I mean, then they should really rework all the healers, because there's just some powers that are just never used. They could do a lot with that. Even powers that are like healing or shielding. I mean, if you look at the Warlock, for instance, I mean, there's just not much option on the Soul Weaver. You're just going to run, and that goes with feats, too.
I mean, I think definitely a problem with that is having all these like damage encounters.
Yeah, and
on healer classes.
Especially healer classes that have DPS roles. You don't have to pay to switch it over. Just put it on the DPS side, right? Whenever you're healing, you should have all of those options, and maybe the healing ability should also provide some DPS. Sure, if you want to do something like that. But yeah, there's definitely so much wasted area on all the healers, where it's not anything to do with healing. It's not anything to do with damage reduction or anything. It's just this does a little bit of damage. The smallest amount of damage is just kind of useless. And it's another reason, like you're going back to what you were saying about they can track how often a class is played. I mean, I didn't have to do this single-handedly. A lot of people don't play the Bard, but I intentionally avoided playing the Bard because I wanted them to see. And I'm glad that this is actually true, because in my brain I thought this, if I don't play it, maybe they'll fix it. And I'm hoping that contributed a little bit.
Yeah, what's the word? Boycott.
Yeah,
right? You boycotted the class. You would hope that they actually saw that by the fact that they're saying they can see those metrics and went, oh, no one's playing our new class that we spent an entire mod release on.
Right. It's got to hurt a little, right?
I mean, yeah, you would think.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was, obviously we covered a lot of the class balancing stuff, which obviously that was something they didn't really want to go into too much. It was only mentioned a few things because they can't do everything at once. He quite clearly said that. That's why it was obvious the Bard pushed out the other ones. So that's just how it is. You have to wait. Whatever's most important, gets done.
Yep.
Okay, so Stronghold Rework is far out.
I think I noted that it's just not existent.
I know. I hear people ask about it a lot, and it means absolutely nothing to me. But I know that we've never been really, guild-focused people. We have our group of friends.
And we never, built... I mean, we built up a guild, but not to the max level. We haven't ever dove so deep into a guild or been so loyal to a guild that it needed to have all of these things. I mean... I don't really even know what I would ask from a Stronghold update other than maybe having unique vendor options where you can get cool gear and niche stuff. And the potions and the foods and stuff, all that could get reworked.
Which is what's happening.
Yeah. But other than that,
you spoiled it, but,
Oh, did I spoil
But, yeah, I mean, that's really it, right? We've said in the past, if there wasn't guild boons, we wouldn't be in a guild. We would just have our friends or whatever. Honestly. And not worry about having a whole guild, which I know that's a rare case. Most people need people in the game to play with. I mean, we even get to trials and need to find people to play with. Yeah. Because trials are a lot more people, and we play with a very small group of people most of the time.
Yes.
Right? So I understand that the Stronghold thing does drive a lot of people. And basically they said, I put near term, which is maybe a year, maybe within this year, refreshing the shops, the stores in the Stronghold to make the currency valuable again, to make guild marks valuable, to make it worth putting stuff into the coffer, not to build stuff up, but to be able to spend guild marks on new gear or consumables, etc., like you're saying.
Right. Because there are niche things that you can make 80 with guild marks, but you have to really... It's not, if you're looking to make AD, you can't really with guild marks. If you're looking to buy something important for your character with guild marks, there's not really even that either. I mean, I, for years, have just been using mysterious merchant stuff as transmutes, right? Yeah. I've just been kind of throwing that in there, but it also gives no incentive to go do influence farms anymore for a lot of people. There's just, not much to get from it that is super useful for your character.
I've got an idea of something that people can spend guild marks on. In the Stronghold, the professions maps, the explorers charts. Yeah, get that professions update out.
But is there an explorers chart that has the new stuff you can farm? No, there's no new stuff.
I think it was in the preview maybe for a couple of days on PC or something like that. I remember briefly.
Imagine having all those maps and then not having any kind of idea what you're gonna do with the new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if they just released that would be two birds with one stone. That would give you obviously it doesn't fix everything. But it gives you at least a guild mark sync again. But anyway, that's their update on Strongholds.
Crickets.
Not coming very soon. Just the shops. Whatever. It's a partial fix. It does actually address something, which is
I mean, at least they were very transparent about it.
So I put here pushing to focus on queues and make better success rates and adjusting rewards for the queues. So looking at separating public-facing and private-facing content was something he said, where I guess their idea is they want to have content that is public-facing, that is meant for being able to be achieved as a public queue.
AKA not some mechanic that is required to be done or you all wipe.
Like tank swaps was the specific thing he said.
Yeah.
So there was some stuff mentioned. This was related to demo getting taken out of the game.
Yeah.
Or taken out of the queue system because it had a very, very low success rate. And I guess the whole point is because of the tank swapping, people don't do the tank swapping. Even though that mechanic is broke. It's actually broken in Demogorgon.
No one's talking about the fact that you can still kind of cheese it.
Yeah.
But even that is not, you can't get people to do that queue even though there's a cheese available.
Yeah, which so he also mentioned having the whole normal version and master version of Trials.
Yeah.
Where he said the mechanics should actually be different. So unlike Zariel, where she just had no health and didn't hit you for anything, but the mechanics were the same, the Tank Buster still hit you for 1.6 billion damage or whatever it was.
Right.
In that, right? It still did that. You still had to do that no matter what. I guess his point is that's the mechanic they would take out of the normal version of Zariel in the future. Because he said stuff where you have to communicate with people, which isn't going to happen because you're in a random queue.
Well, yeah, and he did also mention that, you know, and this is a very good point, a lot of times you aren't always going to be on the game with a whole bunch of other people that you can communicate with it. That's one thing. But what he did mention was that this is a very, very broad international game. There are so many languages being spoken.
Language barrier.
Yep, and I can tell you right now that I speak English, and a lot of the times that is very difficult. We even have, you know, friends on the game that speak Portuguese and French and I mean Italian, and we have to try and communicate. And it's not easy. We try and we get there, but it's not easy.
When it gets to difficult mechanics that are hard to even explain to English-speaking people, imagine how much more difficult it is when you are speaking to someone in a different... And obviously, most of the time, brilliant education in other countries in the world, and they actually learn English. Fantastic for people that speak English.
They're the ones that always pull through and know what you're saying, or at least they can translate a bit. They're the ones that are always going... Okay, yeah. And
explaining complex mechanics. Stuff, most of the time when you do that, I mean, I know that playing Destiny a few days ago, trying to explain mechanics in completely new words that even you are just making up for it and stuff like that, how are they going to have translations for these words?
Yeah.
When we're talking about the mechanics in Trial of in Tower of the Mad Mage, we have names for those that might not even have translations in other languages or, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think, it was very good that those points of the language barrier and also random queues mean that that's going to be a separation in the future with the easy and hard version of content.
Yeah.
Is going to be, this is a public facing version of the content. It's made for these people. It's not going to have these mechanics that you need to communicate for. And then the harder stuff is going to have those things, which is great because we like hard content. So the fact that there's going to be a separation and that those communication issues, whether by language or not even communicating, those things aren't going to be dragging down the content and making it easy because we like having difficult content, and that should exist still.
Right. And also probably would help if we didn't name mechanics Chin Diesel and...
Yeah, exactly. Like we come up with like catchy, we come up with catchy terms or whatever, which, you know, you can't translate. So that was
Yeah.
So the rewards. They said adjusting the rewards, and the thing is, there was no mention of what that entails, which is not really ever a good thing and there was a brief mention of how most of the AD is made from random trial queue. So that's something they don't just want it all to be from that. Random trial queue isn't rewarding to us.
No.
It doesn't matter that you get 50k rough AD or whatever it is. That isn't rewarding to us as endgame players and been playing for years. So the reward question is always, and it's all subjective. Whether the rewards are going to be good or not is completely subjective compared to, like, based on where you are in the game, how long you've been playing it for, what rewards you're used to in the past. Like, that doesn't mean anything to us when we've been playing since, you know, stupid times where you're making 1 million AD a run of a dungeon in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Because
that's just it's not really a thing anymore. And I mean, I think about it all the time, it's like, I don't even know what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a reward anymore.
No, and we've mentioned in the past that our ideal situation isn't to make a bunch of AD. I'm not saying bring salvage back or whatever.
Yeah.
My ideal situation is actually upgrading your character with things you get from the dungeon.
I think so, and I know that, like, it's silly, but at the same time, being able to run anything now and having rewards, because remember, things used to be a bit more per dungeon you're running is what would drop, and then they started changing all that, and it was drops were in everything, and then they started putting legendary mounts and stuff. I mean, I can't remember when legendary mounts sold for a lot. I never pulled a legendary mount ever, anything like that. But I mean, the whole like concept of what needs to come out of it it's hard for me to think of. Like,
well, I have a good suggestion, which is I'm actually going to skip way ahead to something that got asked about way later. Which this is something I feel like they dropped the ball with. They really dropped the ball with this idea because it's something that we both sit here and say we want to upgrade our characters, right?
Yeah.
Baseline. You want to run a piece of content and be able to upgrade your character by the end of it. For a long time, we've been suggesting stuff like having something that's a constantly upgrading, really small upgrades, but you can constantly upgrade it over time.
Yeah.
Right? Something along those lines. Like we said, just an offhand example here, a pair of shirt and pants that every time you get enough whatever reagents for it, the numbers go up slightly on it. And it's an infinite amount.
Yes.
But the way that the scaling is that the numbers don't matter. It's a tiny, tiny amount of stats you get for each upgrade. Like I'm literally talking like 1 power or something like that. But it also takes a very long time because it's something you feel like you will always be upgrading it. And then it's something that, you know, say if you balance your character, you balance your stats in a new mod, and you go, oh, I need 44 more power to be perfect. You know you can grind your XP on your shirt and pants or whatever. Something like that. Like, that's just a stupid offhand example.
No, well, I don't think it's stupid. I think it's a good idea.
But I have an actual thing that they put in the game that works in this kind of way. And that's called mount collars.
Well,
so they brought this up later on. They said the mount collars are supposed to be something, because someone suggested again, like they have mentioned in the past, reducing the cost of mount collars. I've mentioned it in videos as well, because it's ridiculous. We walked around with epic collars on for so long because it was stupidly expensive to do it.
You felt dumb ranking it up.
So I felt
waste of resources.
And this isn't meant to be offensive to anyone, because if you have the spare in-game currency or help me God, you have the spare out of game currency to spend to upgrade these, the cost of immediately upgrading those collars when it got changed to Mythic was the price of a vacation, of a luxury vacation.
I remember
thousands
when
of
you
dollars.
calculated
I
this.
calculated how much it was. You could go anywhere in the world for the price that it was to get max Mythic collars. That's the scale we're talking about. I know obviously there are very expensive things in this game in the past, like strongholds. We figured out years ago it was something like $500,000 or something to max a stronghold from scratch. Something stupid, but I digress. That is a stupid amount of money to be able to spend on those items. You know, it wouldn't mean a single thing to me if you couldn't purchase those items. You can't sell them, you can't buy them on the trade house. The only way you can get them is from random drops, because then it's a pure measure of obviously RNG, but also your effort and grinding in the game.
Yeah, but also not even RNG, because if they had implemented like Reaper's Challenge from that time, Reaper's Challenge could guarantee you one of those greater shards. I mean, if they'd had it since mount collars came out, a way of just purchasing one a day.
One a day, yeah. Simple as that.
It still would have been a slow process, but it would have been worth it, because that's a way you don't have to, you're guaranteed to get this by doing this content. You're guaranteed to get a greater shard of empowerment to use, and I like things like that. I like the guarantees. Also like the surprise drops, but that doesn't happen very often.
But mainly that constant upgrade.
Yeah, something you can keep working at. A reason to play content. It keeps the game healthy, I think.
Which obviously you can do that. like we said, you can do Reaper's Challenge. You get one a day and hope you get extra ones. The problem is, we're not isolated. We're not isolated people. You can see this other person in your guild that has max mythic collars immediately and has better stats than you in every way and does more damage than you in every way and whatever, right? You can see that right there. This is how they get you with microtransactions in like Call of Duty and stuff. They give someone a better skin on a gun, so when you get killed by that person with that gun, you want it now or whatever.
I mean, yeah.
You know, and that's not very fair because that doesn't achieve that slow overtime upgrade. And they said they wanted that to be the way it is. You can't claim that when you can then allow people to just swipe their credit card and buy it all outright. That's kind of lame.
Yeah, it's teasing. I think it's teasing to an effect. I mean, especially people that might be struggling with their character and they know that upgrading those collars is going to help, with stats and just having it. And I mean, it's just the tease in general. And looking at something, it's like, okay, if you count the amount of days it's going to take you to get mythic collars doing a Reapers every day,
it's still a long time.
It's a very long time. Over here, he's got them immediately, or she's got them immediately.
And obviously, like I said before, that's not just people spending money. Obviously, some people did have a lot of in-game currency. It's just the comparison I put in there. That it is a lot of money as well, and it's possible,
Yeah.
Which is... That's kind of a side topic, but we're getting our opinions out in this, right, about the game. And
I mean, I think so. I tell people all the time, all my builds, don't worry about maxing out your collars.
Yeah, I said that as well.
Yeah, it's even if you stick with epic. I mean, legendary, sure, go for it, but you don't feel like that's. You want to focus on your insignias before that, and that's even a pain to get up. But yeah, I definitely don't think people need to focus on that.
But a bright side about this, which is the next point, is that he said he doesn't want impossible randomization for rewards. People brought up the RNG, right? People wanted to know about how he felt with RNG because he plays the game, he experiences it, and he actually brought up a story which spoke to me definitely because he said about how he ran the Sharandar bounties for months. And the thing is, and he said that he calculated the odds of how long it would take for him to get the piece, right? Which is a very long time. And he said it about an event as well. There was an event, and he said that the odds were that he wouldn't have it by the end of the event because of the time he had. The thing about that is, it's not even about the odds. It's that there is a chance you will never ever get it.
Exactly.
The RNG factor is there is a chance you will never get it, and there have been things in the game that we have never got.
I mean
until they're invalid.
That hit me hard. Pre-mod 16, it hit me hard with the Grave Striker ring. The power ring that all of the ACs were running, I could not get it. And I was devastated. I set the game down and I walked away from it. That I could have never gotten that. Eventually I did when it was kind of irrelevant, but I got it. Nowadays, it's like the Band of Air is the biggest problem, I think, for people.
That's what it made me quit recently.
Yeah,
because it just simply wasn't worth the time we were putting in.
And speaking of Sharandar bounties, I mean, I have made builds with 2 blue pieces I can't get the epic version of. Some cleric the other day asked me to check out his build. I inspected it and I saw that he had the 2 pieces that I needed. I mean, his build's already better than mine, just from having those pieces, but it's like he got them. I have not gotten them. I really wish I had, but it's like, do you get on every day and keep running them, or you just go, you know what? Chances of me are never gonna get them.
And and like I said, it's happened to us so many times that is how it makes us feel. And the companion gear thing is a very big thing for me because if you remember, I was actually streaming a lot of the time in Tower of the Mad Mage, and I was on stream ranting. I was ranting so many times that I couldn't get the piece from Zoc boxes. It was the Briar Twined sword knot. Right? I remember it so vividly, and I was in stream screaming about how Chris Whiteside better mail me a Briar Twine sword knot or something. He
was in that stream, wasn't he?
And he was actually active in a lot of streams at the time.
Yeah.
So I was going on about it in streams here and there. And then actually a very short while later after that, they gave out a free companion piece pack and you could choose one.
And
so I finally
it was
got
owed
the piece.
to you. I think it was.
I like to think that. I like to think
to you because Yeah, I mean,
I like to think I did influence that in some way, but yeah, I mean, the point is, if that hadn't happened, I never would have got that piece. Same thing with the current trial. I went into it with green and blue pieces on.
Yeah.
For my DPS build, you know, I went into it with lower level pieces because I just couldn't get them from the Sharandar bounties. So, and then the trial dropped new pieces anyway. So again, why am I ever going to do Sharandar bounties again? And I know that the new trial doesn't have pieces that cover everything. So that's why you would have to still do bounties. But it made it irrelevant to me now. I'm never going to go back and do that content, and I never got it. That's bad. And he pointed that out. This is a good thing. Yes. He's noticing this. And he said, Street Breaker systems, that's something that a lot of people ask for. You run so and so many, it has a better chance each time. That's one way to do it. Or a system they already have in the game, which is running so and so many, getting a currency from each one of something, and then buying it.
That's what I think they should do.
Which they've had it in the game.
I think that they should have a store of all the companion pieces. You do enough bounties, and at some point, if you don't get it, you buy it. And the reason why I think that is because, I mean, the streak system wouldn't necessarily work with Sharandar bounties because it doesn't know which one you need, right?
Well, I guess the idea would be more of a knockout system. It would give you the ones you don't have, and then after that, it would give you any. Similar to how in Destiny they do that with exotics. With exotics,
right?
So that could be a way they do it. But I mean, the fact that they already have the system in the game, and we actually said that about that companion gear back in Tom, because they had the weapons that way, and we said just make a store where you can do it in each Zoc box you open. You get a currency, and you can hand them in. There was even currencies that you got from those that you handed in for vanity pets. Just put them in that store. You know, it was always there as as an option, and it just wasn't.
It's definitely something I think that they should implement. I think they should implement it on any stores or any kind of systems where RNG is the first initial step. There's a currency building in the background. If your RNG is really that bad, like Coco's with this Band of Air.
My RNG is terrible.
Absolutely painful. I mean, yeah, you normally have very bad RNG. I get mad at myself about not getting on and doing my Sharandar bounties, but I feel like I did my time. That is mods ago now at this point. Like, I'm not getting on anymore.
If the RNG makes you quit the game, it's badly designed. That's the bottom line, and it has done that to us multiple times.
It has, yeah.
And it's not just that it takes so long and that it's just, we'll put in more work. The game has lost its entertainment value at that point.
Yeah.
And only getting on to grind for that thing and something that's not entertaining isn't worth it. So we play a different game or whatever. You know? Right. So another one that's kind of like a woe is us kind of story there. But
I think a lot of people can relate because I've had a lot of people saying, especially like Vault of Stars, they've been trying to get the Grove's Crystal Tears ring for their healer, the Red Eyes Glare. I still haven't gotten the Queen's Golden Sky ring. And I've ran it probably 1,000 times at this point and still not. So I think people do relate.
Good point. Yeah. I don't want it to sound like we're just complaining. But this is why I say go listen to the actual one, and get your own opinions, because this is just our pretty much unfiltered opinions.
Yeah.
Obviously, I could scream and shout about some stuff in this game, but I'm not.
You have to also. I mean, yeah, I think everyone can, but you have to also remember that we are explaining this relating to him. He agrees, and we are talking about our issues with it. But this is a good thing. We're talking about it because he's also addressing it in most of these scenarios.
Yeah, I guess that's
it's actually a positive.
That's a better way to round it off. Is that stuff's going to get changed?
We're relating to Brett on this.
It's too easy to complain about Neverwinter right now. Hey, that's
yeah.
We're falling into the trap. Anyway, this might have to be a two-parter. We might have to just cut it off at some point in the middle and do a two-parter.
Well, we could do the whole thing, and then at the end we could say...
if this went too long, which it probably did, this might actually be a two-part video. So me saying this now means there'll be a second part to look out for, and it'll just cut off randomly in the middle. The next one probably won't have an intro. So keep that in mind.